Property Part 2. Okay, go through real quick. Named peril versus open peril, more commonly known to as all risk policies for property. Named peril is going to be, the policy is only going to cover specifically named perils that, or that cause claims. So if you were to think about fire, vandalism, sprinkler leakage, etc. All risk or open peril is going to cover everything subject to the policy exclusions. And there's a whole litany of exclusions, but some of the ones you might think about would be like earth movement, flood, nuclear hazard, things like that. Pretty much every policy that we sell is going to be an all risk or an open peril policy. So the named peril, we don't ever see it. That said, you get into what's called the difference in conditions policy, more commonly known to DIC. These are going to be, like I said, earthquake and flood are excluded in our all risk policies. This is how you provide coverage. So we're going to get another policy that's going to be an earthquake policy, or it's going to be a flood policy. It's going to be under the umbrella of a difference in conditions policy. So if you ever see that term DIC, that's what it's referring to. Is it's a property policy that is going to try to provide coverage for things that would otherwise be excluded in the policies. Replacement costs versus actual cash value. So replacement cost is the cost to replace new today with materials of like kind and quality. So cost new today with like kind and quality. Actual cash value is the same thing, less depreciation. And a common way that a lot of its tools and equipment are depreciated are what's referred to as straight line depreciation, which if just in your head you want to think about it's 20% per year, there's usually a salvage value. So if something costs $10,000 and the salvage value is $1,000, means that it's a scrapyard or someone will give it to you at the very end of its life. It depreciates that between the 10,000 and the 1,000, not all the way to zero. So, but it's usually 20% per year, and that's a commonly used form of depreciation. There's other more complex methods, but that's a general idea. I think it's further in here, so I might be a little bit ahead of myself, but the nice thing about the property policy is that things that are within the premises are going to be covered under replacement cost, right? So replacement cost is always more preferable to actual cash value. Want to go through COPE real quick. COPE is an acronym that stands for the 4 risk characteristics an underwriter reviews when evaluating property insurance. So what's the construction type? Is it frame? Is it masonry, tilt up, etc.? Occupancy. How is the building being used for a commercial property? Is it an office building like this, or do they manufacture fireworks in there? There's going to be a different risk there for likelihood of burning down. Protection, the distance to or from a fire station, the water pressure, is it out in Podunk, wherever, and there's not a lot of access to water to put it out. Things like that would affect the risk characteristic. And then again, the exposure risk of loss posed by neighboring property. So same thing is, what if this isn't a fireworks shop, but there's a fireworks shop right there, right? If that blows up, more likelihood this would be. If you go through here, there's a bunch of the COPE questions that we ask is, do you own or lease the building? If you own, what's the value of the building, the estimated total property value inside? What year was it built? Any renovations since? If it was built in the 1920s, has the electrical wiring been updated? Things like that. Same with the plumbing. Are the piping eroded? That's why they're asking these questions. What square feet do you occupy? The type of construction, is it alarmed, sprinklered? Things like that are these type of more detailed COPE questions that the underwriters are going to be curious about. Property versus inland marine. So for tools and equipment that stay at the scheduled premises and don't leave, that's what we want property for, right? So we have sometimes equipment that stays at the job site they use, and sometimes stays at the location, and sometimes they take it to the job site. the proper place for that to be covered would be inland marine, because it's gonna go back and forth. We want it to be covered while it's off premises as well. Properties, remember, only gonna be within 100 feet. The problem is a lot of times it's possible to have dual coverage, right? If it gets stolen at the job site, it could be covered under property, which would be better because it would be under replacement cost. Once it leaves the job site, it's gonna be, most of the time, actual cash value. Some of the carriers will allow us to do replacement cost, but I think it has to be really new, and I think only one, maybe two carriers will do it.
Yeah, it's, you reversed it, and it's at the insured location, it's replacement cost, not the job site.
Sorry, I knew that, just switched it. But thank you for the purpose of you watching this. So, replacement cost at the location, not at the job site. I think that was that. I do good with distractions.
So here's a question, so the question came up yesterday. You have dual coverage, right?
Right.
Does the insured get to pick if the equipment is stolen off the truck at his location
Right.
versus on the job?
Yeah.
Does the client get to choose?
Yes. Next week, we're going to talk about co-insurance. We're going to go through some of the property quotes like we did with auto. We're going to go through the property broadening form to see some of these additional coverages that will come into play, these throw-in coverages, and then we're going to go through the proposal as well. So, other than that question, any other questions from anyone else? I know we kind of ripped through that, but
The actual cash value depreciation,
yes.
sorry, Don.
Yeah.
When you said it's 20% per year, is it 20% from the original cost, or is it 20% year over year?
It's called straight line depreciation, which is at 20% per year. It's not always that way.
But what I'm saying is, if something was valued at $10,000
Right.
new,
Right.
the next year 20% off of that is, so now it's $8,000.
80, 60, 40, 20.
Okay.
But there's what
So
there's
the
no
next year-
salvage value. A lot of times there's a salvage value.
Right. But
Particularly
what I'm saying,
for
so the
salvage.
next year, the second year, it's not going to be
It's not
20%
20%
off.
of the 80.
all
It's
right. Okay.
of the
The
cost.
original. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's what I thought.
And every item, that's an example of straight line, but every item has a different depreciating schedule.
Right.
You could have an item that depreciates in 2 years, right? So it's a different than somebody thinking, hey, everybody thinks 5 years is the,
Yeah.
depreciation, but you could actually have a tool that would be 2 years, but you could have a tool that could be 10 years.
Well, and think about automobiles, right? I mean, their depreciation schedule is more parabolic, right? So it drops off right away, and then it kind of teeters in. So it's just different. This is just one example of a form of depreciation that they use.
So how do you know the difference between, is that the insurance company that figures that out, the depreciation lifespan of each different tool?
Yeah, they actually come up, the claims guy will come up with a number, but a lot of times it may not be correct because the client knows differently. So you have to get input from the client and say, hey, look, this is the way they're adjusting it. But typically the claims adjuster talks to the client and says, hey, we've got this tool, this is, how often you replace them, that kind of stuff, etc., and works with the client on it. But, I mean, sometimes it's like values on cars. You get an adjuster, and then you sit and have to, haggle back and forth to try to get what you deserve out of it.
So with that example that your dad threw out, can we dive into that? Where you get to pick the coverage that responds? The property and the...
Sure. What do you want to dive into about
So
it?
he said if something was like stolen off the truck on the property,
Right.
and you said yes, they get to pick.
Right.
So
So,
what are they picking
two
based
things.
off of?
One
Like
thing- one thing-
deductible, like
there-
what?
Based
Two
on
things
the
is
value.
why, one, we always want the client, if you have a claim, call us first.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and it's not likely, but there could be a scenario where they happen to have property with one broker and then marine with another one. More likely, in that scenario would be auto with one and property and then marine with another. Does it get stolen from the auto? Is it covered in the auto?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Okay.
So have them always call us first. But then we have to go through, we gotta go look at deductible, we gotta look at co-insurance, which we'll talk about next week. We gotta look about, is it worth turning in?
Yeah.
Is it so small that it's even worth it? So we gotta have those conversations. I don't know if there is a broad brush you wanna paint it with that, other than it's better to turn it under property where you can.
Well, I'm gonna jump in, because we always have unique situations. Concrete construction, they, in this situation, they had a theft of equipment at their actual office location. The problem was, when they turned it in as a property loss, is they didn't have sufficient personal property coverage at their location. So there was a co-insurance penalty.
Right.
So in that scenario, it was actually beneficial, or it was almost a wash to be reported under the inland marine policy. But that's why you have to look at each thing individually. What's the deductible? How much do you have? And that's why we always want to push our clients to carry more personal property coverage, because the coverage is so cheap that in the event something's stolen there, and all of your insurance is on the inland marine side, but you got 10,000 in personal property,
Yeah.
and it would cost you $150 more to have 100,000, then you don't have the co-insurance penalty, and then it makes life much easier.
How often do you think that the client is coming to us directly before they make the claim?
Most times.
Okay.
Yeah, especially it depends on an auto claim. They might just call the carrier directly.
Mhm.
Workers' comp, they're usually not coming to us.
Yeah.
Most other claims they are.
Okay.
And the problem is the guy says, look, he has a generator, right? Happens to be sitting on the truck, right? He says, he calls the adjuster and says, hey, you know, we have a loss, and it was item number 4 on the schedule, a generator. That guy's gonna immediately wanna take it off of the equipment floater, apply the deductible, and go from there.
Yeah.
We have to be able to say that it was at a property location, we want it settled under the property policy. There's, you know, because now you're talking full replacement, maybe a lower deductible. The only caveat is Justin's point about co-insurance.
Yeah.
If the guy's got proper coverage, which we should be,
Yep.
you know, make sure of, then it's better to be settled under the property section.
And it'll make some more sense once we go over co-insurance next week and the idea behind co-insurance and how it plays out practically. It'll be helpful to kind of understand.
And before, if I understood correctly, did you say that sometimes tools and equipment can be covered at a job site under the property policy?
No, none of the jobs. have-
Okay, all right.
That was the.
That's what I thought.
That was the mix.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, I misspoke.
Cool.
Anything else? Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Real quick.
You want me to keep this rolling?
No, you can.